Mr. Carter, the gentleman from Georgia, for 5 minutes for questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you, Administrator Wheeler, for being here, and thank you and your staff. You have been very helpful to our district and to me personally in a number of different issues, and I want to thank you publicly for that. I wanted to start off with an issue we have in the state of Georgia, ethylene oxide. Ethylene oxide, as you know, is used for the sterilization of medical devices, and we've had some problems. We've had two facilities in the state of Georgia in the Atlanta area that have been impacted by this. One of them I know is closed down. The other one may have closed down as well. I'm not sure, but I know one of them has. Just wanted to ask you, first of all, can you explain to me what's going on there? Because there's been a lot of hysteria, if you will, particularly from those members of the community next to those plants about what is going on.
Yes, and it is a very complicated situation. There is concern over ethylene oxide. The concern, though, and I need to constantly remind people, it's a cancer risk over 70 years. So if you're inhaling it for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the cancer risk is over 70 years. So I don't want. There's been some news articles and some press trying to make it a much more hysterical issue than it is, but it is a very serious issue, which is why we are moving forward on two separate rulemakings to try to address it and try to reduce the emissions from these facilities.
Can you tell me where you're at with those two? With that, can you tell me where you're at with that rulemaking?
Sure. So we proposed the first rulemaking on December 19th for miscellaneous organic chemical manufacturers, and that was proposed this past December. And we did an advance notice of proposed rulemaking for sterilizers. These are companies that use these chemicals. That was an advance notice of proposed rulemaking we issued on December 5th. We went with advance notice because we don't have enough data yet to do a proposed rule, but we're moving forward on two separate rulemaking efforts to try to address the emissions from these facilities. But it's also important to note that ethylene oxide is a very important sterilizer for hospital equipment. The FDA has told us that if we quit producing ethylene oxide, people will die in operating rooms within weeks.
Okay, two things real quick, okay, because I've got a lot here. The first thing is, are you doing anything to work with the communities to communicate to them that, that there's not an immediate risk here?
Yes, we are, and we've done monitoring. We've done air quality monitoring at several of the facilities. We're looking at their data. We have a problem with not just the actual emissions, but also fugitive emissions. We've required several of the facilities to install new pollution control equipment to reduce their emissions.
Okay.
We're trying to make sure that the communities who live around these facilities are protected.
All right. To the other point that you just made about the perhaps a shortage of medical devices, of sterilized medical devices, are you addressing that as well?
FDA is involved in that, but we need to make sure that the ethylene oxide, where the chemical is being used, does not create an unsafe conditions for the people surrounding the facilities or the workers in the facilities. We want to make sure both. But we're also told by FDA that it is required in order to sterilize equipment, that there are no alternatives to ethylene oxide for some of the sterilization for medical devices and surgical equipment.
Okay, all right, real quick, let's go over a couple other things. Tier 4 engines. Thank you for your help, particularly for the bar pilots, particularly for the lobstermen. That has been a tremendous help to us. We need help with it in our ag community, and I know you and I spoke about this last week, and you indicated that there was more information that you needed from the ag community. Are we getting that to you? Tell me what you need, because this is a big problem in the ag community as well.
Sure. We are reaching out to the ag community to request information. Part of the problem is that the users of the equipment don't necessarily have the data. It's the manufacturers. So we're trying to reach out to the manufacturers to get more data from them on the engines.
Okay. All right. Real quick, Superfund cleanups. You're familiar with the sites that we've got in the 1st Congressional District, and you're also familiar with Terry Creek in Glenn County in Brunswick, which we did not agree with the ruling of EPA in that, because you've suggested it be enclosed and not removed. We would rather see it removed. Therefore, I am working on some legislation, the Community Cleanup Act, and I'd like to request technical assistance with that legislation from you and your staff to help me with that, because this is very important. Now, keep in mind, this is a prime retail or prime area in this community that could be used for a number of different purposes, but the community is simply concerned about using it, for instance, to build a school on, when you're only enclosing it and not removing the material.
We'll be happy to discuss that site. I'd be happy to discuss further with you that site, and we'd be happy to provide technical assistance on your legislation.
Okay, one last thing, and that is a thank you. I know that the biomass review is at OMB now. Thank you for your work in that. I hope that you'll continue to push that so that we can get that done. And I know, again, that it's at OMB now, that you've gotten it to that point, but we need to continue on with it as well. So thank you for your assistance, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.